daily is going to find himself. Questions?
When somebody's arrested and put in jail on a non-287G charge, let's say a misdemeanor theft, does the jail run their name anyways to find out their status?
Let me just say this. Prior to my taking office, we had only deported one, and this goes back in time, and our jail representatives are here, Patrick Furman, Deputy Chief, Jennifer Witherspoon, Chief. We had only deported one person where we put a detainer on him. Right now we're in the possession of 75 detainers, and that's growing. So that, in essence, unless they came into the jail with a detainer already on them, they never got deported. They went back out onto the streets. So that's changed. That's the way we do business now.
Right. The question was, if somebody comes in on a minor charge, does the jail run them? And if they're found to be illegal, does the jail then get some type of detainer from INS and hold them on behalf of INS?
That's what we're working on. Yes, absolutely. We're doing that right now.
So you're going to have a lot of prisoners in there that may not be under Lake County charges, but they're being held under a separate jurisdiction charges, which would be Homeland Security or INS, I guess.
Wayne, would you? That's a possibility, I'm sure.
I want to make sure I completely understand your question. Let me explain the process as it exists today and as it exists since August 6th. Every single morning, there's a computer-generated list of foreign-born inmates that is disseminated throughout the county and to Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials downtown Chicago. That list is then vetted by ICE, and ICE makes a determination as to which of those names qualify for an investigational interview. Investigational interviews are then set up prior to these inmates being brought to bond court, so that when they're brought to bond court, there's actually either a detainer or we have knowledge that there's no detainer that's necessary, so that when they appear in front of the bond court judge,
detainers on minor charges.
Yeah. No, they don't put detainers on minor charges.
Hold on one second. Can you step behind the microphone, please?
Yeah.
He was asking about minor charges.
Yeah.
They don't put detainers
Right.
on minor charges.
They don't put detainers on minor charges, long and short. Any other questions?
When did the program start? I know it was last year, but do you remember?
The date that we filed for 287G status, I believe I passed the 1-year date. I'm not certain.
we're about 14 months into the...
Has it been granted?
It has not.
When do you guys expect that?
At the outset, we were told upwards of 3 years.
Yeah.
It hasn't been certified.
Right.
It hasn't been certified.
Correct.
Right, but even, the difficulty is even with sheriff's offices like us that recognize that when we swear to uphold the Constitution, that means something and we're going to do it. The problem is, if ICE isn't funded properly because we have people in Washington that don't believe in the Constitution, don't believe in America, don't believe in our principles, puts us in a difficult situation. Washington and Springfield. Right, Randy?
Yes, if I may, and I want to follow up on this gentleman's question. As I've been working with ICE on my legislation and things, and working with assistant state's attorneys and their problem why we wanted to start in the state's attorney's office, because there are questioning going on by the judge once a person's found guilty. And one of those questions can be, status. But that doesn't go on the record. We wanted to be put on the record when they go into the prison system that ICE already has that information, that then they can start the deportation process. But they're not allowed to ask those questions. Local police officers are not under 287G, and they're not going after, it's not a felony, they can't ask the question of status. So that's where the big holdup is. And so with 287G, they can uphold and ask those questions and hold them then for detainer and get ICE involved. Right now, ICE currently is doing their identification process when the felons, after conviction, are going into the system. And they have a 95% rate of identification in that system. But we were trying to get it started ahead of time to ease up the burden on the Department of Corrections and on ICE.
So, if the program, Wayne mentioned it could be 3 years from when you guys started it, so assuming there's 2 years left or whatever before everything gets rolling, what's the status with these people with the retainers on them, and what can be done in the next 2 years? Can you guys begin deportation process, or do you need to wait 2 years to do that?
No, we're working with them right now. We're expediting things, and that's what the cooperation is allowing for, even short of having full 287G status. So once we have the full status, we'll be able to conduct the hearings via the television monitor that many of you have seen down in the jail, where we'll be linked to Chicago and we'll be linked to Washington, D.C. ICE offices, and then the whole hearing process can take place right here. That's not effectuated yet, but we already have a partnership with them, and as a result of that partnership, we already know, the makeup of our jail, and we already do have detainers, and we're already in a process where we can seek reimbursement pursuant to those detainers, and these detainers already provide for deportation.
Well, maybe you should explain what 287G does. It allows your deputies to do what the ICE officials do.
Right,
So what you're
exactly.
doing-
What 287G does specifically is, once they begin the immigration process for deportation and the investigation pursuant to that, our deputies, in essence, become employees of Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, and they're cross-designated with full powers, what have you, and I essentially lose control over them at that point in time, because they work for ICE, they work under the umbrella of ICE, and we welcome that.
So you're going to be able to deport, or these detainees?
What I think is important, Nick, is that what is being done now is what will be done when 287G, if it's approved, but it's going to be much more efficient. Instead of bringing in ICE officers, it can be done here.
I'm just kind of curious as to what exactly is being done now. I mean, are these
What's
people
being
going to be
done-
deported like next week?
Well, they're going to be deported. Bottom line is, this has never happened before, Nick. Only one instance can we think of in the history of Lake County Jail where somebody came in and they were actually, a post-arrest detainer was put on them where they were deported. Now we have 75 of them and counting and growing. And so, in essence, this is what our partnership and our cooperation is doing. So yes, in answer to your question, absolutely they will be deported. How quickly, ICE is stretched for resources, and I can't give you a quick answer to that.
Don't forget, that's after they've been tried.
Right,
For
exactly,
the offense they're here for.
exactly.
Those proceedings take precedence first.
Ginny?
If they're found guilty of what they're charged of, do they serve time or are they deported?
No, they're going to serve time and then they'll be deported. We're not giving them any, here's a
Get out of jail
bus
free
ticket
card.
out of town. We're going to make sure they get every day they have coming to them here, and then they get to go.
But that won't,
Yeah.
since they're staying here maybe 10 years, whatever, for whatever they did, the government will still be spending money on them.
Right, but there's going to be a number of them who would be sentenced to probation, and they've been identified, and they're going to be deported.
Okay.
Obviously, if somebody's convicted of murder, we're not going to send them back to their country of origin until they serve their sentence, but there are a number of them, and it should produce substantial savings in those cases after they serve their sentence, and if they're released from jail, or where they would, if they would otherwise be placed on probation, they're going to be deported.
And that is sort of what the rapid repat program is all about, taking the non-violent felon and giving them the 6-month early release at the cost of, being deported immediately. And if they re-enter, not only are they breaking the law again, but then they're going against their the condition of parole. So there's a double stack on them.
So, Jerome, something you explained to me
Sure.
last time that I interviewed, because some residents from Lake County will be like scared. They say, well, it's discrimination. They're going to stop me even if I don't do anything.
Yeah.
But you said that you're after only criminals.
Right, exactly. We're actually not even doing roundups. We're strictly working with people that have already been arrested and in the jail. So we're not part of a field program. Our understanding is that right now nobody is getting through the field program. Waukegan had applied for it, but the funds are not there, is what we've heard from ICE. So we're strictly dealing with people that have already been arrested and are already in the jail. But this is a serious problem, and I agree with you that that is a concern. My paramount message has always been one of love, and I would hate to say anything that would be inconsistent with that. We have an immigration problem. The anger